Hey everyone, my name is Brannon, and I would like to welcome you to my second weather briefing. We will begin by looking at the current national conditions across the country. So looking at the surface analysis chart, we can see there are low pressure systems dominating the west coast, with some troughs, which brings the chance for rain in the area. We do have a couple of high pressure systems in the area of Arizona and New Mexico, accompanied by a stationary front to the east, which stretches from Kansas to Wisconsin, and that then becomes a cold front once it gets into Canada. There is a high pressure system along the Gulf Coast as well as to the northeast of Maine, and there is a stationary front running through Alabama and Georgia into the Atlantic Ocean. Next up, we'll be diving into the visual satellite image that shows the cloud coverage across the country. Starting on the west coast, there are a large amount of clouds that do continue in the state of Texas that pass through New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada. We will see in the next slide that these clouds do contain a wide area of participation as well as convective activity. There are some clouds along the Gulf Coast and the Midwest that do contain precipitation as well. However, in the area of North Dakota and Montana, the skies appear to be fairly clear, besides a few clouds here and there. So in this radar image, we can see the correlation between the visible satellite image and the last slide. In the areas that contain immersed cloud coverage, there are large amounts of precipitation, some of it being severe, as well as thunderstorms, especially in the area of New Mexico and Arizona and the Utah area. There is what looks like to be a squall line moving across the central U.S. Looks like it's moving east, and that's currently located through Iowa and Kansas and Wisconsin. And there are some multi-cell clusters and some single cells in the southeast forming along the Gulf Coast. There is a bit of participation in California that seems to be fairly light for the most part, no moderate or severe indications. So looking at the convective outlook chart, it appears that most of the country is under a general thunderstorm forecast. However, there is a slight chance for severe weather, mainly in the state of Wisconsin, but in a little bit of southeastern Minnesota and northeastern Iowa, and just to the northwest in Illinois. But other than that, not many chances for severe weather anywhere besides there. So in this slide, we're looking at the convective segments across the country. And there's not much here, but this chart just kind of shows you where all the convective activity is located, and you can see that you have that line in the central U.S. stretching from Kansas to Wisconsin, and then you got those storms to the southeast along the Gulf Coast, especially in Florida there, and then you can see the wide area of thunderstorms forming in New Mexico and Arizona, Texas, and Utah area. So in this chart, we're going to look at the freezing level across the country. And by the looks of it, it looks like most of the freezing level is between 15,000 and 17,000. However, once you get into northeastern North Dakota and Minnesota and Wisconsin, you see the freezing levels start to rise and they start to lower and they become between 13,000 and 15,000. And you can see in North Carolina, Tennessee, parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and West Virginia, and parts of Ohio, the freezing level becomes above 17,000. And then the northeastern part of the country in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Hampshire, you see the freezing level is between 13 and 15,000. And once you get into Maine, it becomes between 11,000 and 13,000 there. But other than that, it's fairly consistent, staying between 15,000 and 17,000. So next up, we'll be looking at the local current conditions here in the area of Grand Forks. So we'll start off by looking at the visible satellite imagery over North Dakota and western Minnesota. And there's not much going on, but there are a few clouds moving across the state. You can notice that we did have some clouds up there today, but no ceilings or anything like that. Just pretty clear for the most part throughout the day. So next up, we'll be looking at the radar image for Minnesota, North Dakota, and Wisconsin area. And as you can see, there's not much happening throughout the state of North Dakota and most of Minnesota. Besides, in the southeast, you have that line of thunderstorms moving to the east that has some moderate precipitation down there in Iowa. but other than that, it's just fairly light as it reaches into Wisconsin and continues onward. Okay, so next up we'll be looking at the MEDARs taken from Grand Forks International Airport today, with the earliest one being at 10 a.m. and the latest one we retrieved being around 3 p.m. there. As you can see, the winds that came mainly out of west, southwest, mainly west for the most part, and pretty light today. They peaked at 6 knots there around 1 o'clock today, and visibility held constant at 10 statute miles. We did have a few clouds here today, as we saw in the satellite imagery, the visible satellite imagery, and those peaked at 7,000 and wind as low as 4,500. Temperature was pretty high today, just hanging there at the low 30s, and altimeter pretty steady at 3002. So overall, it's a fairly nice day to fly. Not much going on, light winds, few clouds. Alright, so next we'll be looking at the national forecasted conditions for into tomorrow. So next up we'll be looking at the low-level prognostic chart, and we'll pay attention more to the right one, as this one deals with 7 a.m. Central Time, and the left one is just 7 p.m. tonight. So there we can see there is some moderate or greater turbulence in western Montana and northern Idaho, and the freeze level is going to be above mean sea level across most of the country. And we do have some marginal VFR conditions happening in the central U.S., stretching from Colorado all the way up to Wisconsin, and there is some chance for IFR conditions there in Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin as well as the eastern part of Colorado. There is some more marginal VFR conditions down in southeastern Texas there, along the Gulf Coast area, as well as in the southeast, stretching from Georgia and Alabama up to Virginia, with IFR conditions happening in the Carolina areas as well as northeast Georgia. There's also a little IFR up there in the northeast. We can spot it just off the coast of Maine. But other than that, that's about it. There is, due to these thunderstorms moving in, as we saw that squall line moving across, that's what's causing these conditions up in the central U.S. there. So now we'll take a look at the convective outlook chart for tomorrow. And you can see most of the country's forecast to have general thunder, besides little parts there to the northwest in California and Texas. Part of North Dakota, is going to be under a marginal risk for severe weather, as well as New York and Pennsylvania is going to have a marginal risk for severe weather. But Grand Forks looks to be out of the risk for that type of weather. Alright, so lastly is going to be the local forecasted conditions here in North Dakota. So looking at this TAF for Grand Forks Airport, we can see it's going to be pretty nice tomorrow for flying. Winds are going to be out of the west for the most part, 6 knots. There might be some southern winds around 7 a.m. tomorrow though, at 5 knots. Visibility holds steady at 6 statute miles. Not many clouds in the area, just a few at 6,000, and looks like a few at 25,000. But other than that, looks like it's going to be a nice day to fly tomorrow. So looking at the winds aloft forecast for Grand Forks, we can see at 3,000 and 6,000 winds are going to be out of the, looks like the southwest at 17 knots, and light and variable there at 9 or 1,000. And for Alexandria, which is just southeast Fargo, winds will be about at 3 and 6,000 out of the southwest again, around 5 or 6 knots, and light and variable at 9 or 1,000 again, like Grand Forks there. So overall, looking like a pretty nice weather tomorrow throughout the eastern border of North Dakota and down south. Okay, let's look at this graphical aviation forecast chart. We can see winds are going to be very, very calm tomorrow at 7 a.m. Coming out of the south for the most part across the state. Roughly peaked at 5 knots. Skies are going to be clear, so there's not much going on here, unlike over there in Wisconsin and southeastern Minnesota. But that concludes my second weather briefing, and hope you enjoy, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.